Hey travelers, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about all things international law. If you are interested in this career field, then this video is for you. And you're going to want to stay to the very end because we're going to be talking about everything, travelers, from education requirements, skills needed, how much money you're going to make, the future of this career, among many other things. Travelers, if you also haven't already, be sure to check out the other videos in the series. I go over each sector of the international affairs career field and I break it down. So be sure to check that out. Travelers, are you ready? I sure am. Let's get started. What is international law? International law are rules and agreements that take place between nations and legally recognized international actors. Because we live in an interconnected world, sometimes legal issues transcend a nation's borders. As a result, we need lawyers that know how to interpret this. What is the education required if you want to go into international law and specifically be a lawyer? Well, you're going to need a JD or a Juris Doctor, or if we're being technical, a Doctor of Jurisprudence. In the United States, some schools have separate applications for those that are interested in international law. One example of this is Georgetown University. Georgetown University has a program, or a school rather, called Georgetown University's Law Center's Global Law Scholars Program. Many schools, however, do not have specific centers dedicated to international law, but instead you could take certain classes related to international law that comes from different perspectives, such as a justice perspective or a regional perspective. When it comes to study abroad, some law schools will allow you to study in another country for a semester and even pursue a joint degree with a school overseas. But be sure to check with your admissions representative and your advisor when you're in law school to make sure this is a possibility that you can do if you're interested. If you want to go into international law, but you're like, oh, JD, lawyer, I don't know if I like that. Well, there's another option for you. It's called the Master of Law. And so if you pursue the Masters of Law, you will get the working knowledge of how to speak like a lawyer. You'll learn about legal jargon. You'll be able to function in the law world. The only difference is A, you're not a lawyer, and B, you do not have to represent a client. But one thing that's really cool about this is because you can work in international law, but you can work in other fields or industries as well, including healthcare, cybersecurity, the environment sector, universities, tech startups, media, banks, business. All of these industries or sectors have an international law component that you can work for. International law is pretty competitive, and so you're going to want to take a wide variety of courses that will give you different perspectives on this field. And some courses can include international law, international human rights, international arbitration, energy and climate change, national security, just to name a few. In addition to law classes, you definitely want to look into writing classes, but also it depends on what you're interested in, what kind of area that you want to work in. For example, if you want to work in finance or business, in addition to international law, then I would consider taking business or finance classes as well. But be sure to check with your advisor. Skills needed to work in international law. One skill that is definitely an asset to have if you go into this career field are foreign languages. Having additional languages will make you stand out in a competitive field. Depending on what country or area of the world you specialize in, this could be super useful and the type of international law that you do. Additionally, experience is very important. You need to have as much experience as you can, and some ways to get experience are during your breaks. You can volunteer or work in international human rights agencies or organizations, NGOs, law firms. So you can study abroad, as I mentioned before. The sky is the limit for getting experience. Teamwork. Many times you're going to be on teams in order to create or reach a common goal or objective. And so working on teams and knowing how to work with others is super critical in this career field. Other skills include research and analytical skills. You got to be able to know how to get the information and how to interpret the information for it to work in your favor. And then lastly, cross-cultural skills. Cross-cultural skills are huge if you're in this global international environment. What are some of the job outcomes if you go into international law? Well, there are many different ones. You can be a diplomat, a mediator, a researcher, a intergovernmental lawyer, a paralegal. And one thing about paralegals is that some positions require an associate's degree, but some will also require a bachelor's degree. So be sure to check with the firm that you're interested in. There are many different career fields, career tracks that you go into. One thing to definitely take away is that you might not necessarily need to go directly into international law to get experience. One way to build a unique skill set and a broad perspective is working on various projects in different countries. And this exposure when you do various projects in these countries will give you a greater perspective and a landscape, a broader landscape of international law, of legal regulations. For example, as I mentioned earlier, say you're interested in finance, for example, or business. Maybe you work in global finance in Washington, D.C., or if you're interested in human rights, you can do a human rights project in Cambodia. And through the project, you might have exposure to the legal landscape, to legal regulations, and you thus gain experience in international law this way too. So the question that we are all waiting on, how much money can one actually earn if they are going into the international law space? And before we get into the numbers, let me just preface this by saying there are different factors that determines one's salary, such as the geographic location. Some cities or states that you will be in may pay more for that same job than others. Another factor is experience, level of education, and the firm or organization that you're with. All of these can determine what kind of money you're going to make. So for this video, I picked 3 different occupations. I picked a paralegal, a mediator, and of course, an international lawyer. Fitting, right? We're talking about international law. First, let's go over the paralegal. According to ZipRecruiter, on average, a paralegal can make about $57,000. For a mediator, they can make about $120,000. And for an international lawyer, it can be somewhere around $140,000. And just know that these salaries can be lower or higher based on the factors that we discussed. What is the work-life balance like for international lawyers? Travelers, I'm going to keep it honest. The work-life balance for international lawyers, for those in this career field, can be a bit of a challenge because there are many different things that professionals in this career field are juggling. For example, client expectations, stress, high workloads, demands, deadlines, all while sometimes, doing this in different time zones because of course we're in the international space, and travel can be involved, but because we have video conferences, teleworking can also be an option as well. But despite these challenges, there are rewards. First, those in this career field, because there is a lot of stressful work, is financially rewarding, so that is a plus. And 2, you can work on high profile cases, and must we not forget, you can impact lives, which is probably the most important, or one of the most important aspects in this career field. For work-life balance, I went to payscale.com to see what the work-life balance is for certain jobs in this career field. For mediators, they scored a 90% in high job satisfaction and a 69% in meaning. For paralegals and legal assistants, they scored a 69% in job satisfaction and 45% in meaning, and lawyers scored a 68% in job satisfaction and a 42% in meaning. Is international law worth it? Well, that is only for you to decide. What I will say is that international law is not going away anytime soon. We are going to need legal experts to help us determine legal issues in regards to human rights, technology, climate change, education, for example. Although this career field has a lot of demands and it can be stressful, you can make a great impact on the world, and it is financially rewarding. Okay, travelers, that concludes today's video. If you are pursuing a career in international law, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Be sure to also check out my free e-course. I go over all things how to travel boldly with confidence and careers in international affairs. The link is in the description box below. Be sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you haven't already. And as always, travelers, it's been a pleasure. And until next time, let's travel with our dreams together. See you later. Bye-bye.